My daughter-in-law shoved me at the Christmas dinner table. "That chair belongs to my mother. Get up out of there." I fell to the floor in front of the entire family, but what she did not know was that very night, I would change her life forever. When she woke up the next morning, 23 missed calls. The sound of my body hitting the vintage oak hardwood floor was the only thing heard in that living room. Not the Christmas music in the background, nor the laughter that just seconds before had filled my dining room. Just the dull thud of my 68-year-old self crashing against the floor that I myself had chosen 40 years ago. When Arthur and I built this house brick by brick, Chloe stood in front of me, in that red dress that fit her entirely too tight, her eyes burning with rage, her hand still extended from the shove. My hip burned. I felt the cold of the floor piercing through my beige skirt, the one I had put on with such care that morning because I wanted to look nice for Christmas dinner. For my Christmas dinner, in my house. "That chair holds the memory of my father-in-law," Chloe yelled, pointing to the empty chair near the head of the table. "You cannot just sit there like it is nothing. Get up." If this story resonates with you, subscribe to the channel to keep watching true stories like this one that need to be told. Everyone was looking at me. My brother Robert with his fork halfway to his mouth, my sister-in-law Linda with her eyes wide open, my young nieces and nephews recording everything with their cell phones, because of course, everything is content nowadays. Susan, my younger sister, dropped her napkin and stood up immediately, but she was the only one. The worst part was not the fall. The worst part was my son's silence. Ryan was sitting 3 chairs down, staring intently at his slice of prime rib roast. The prime rib I had been preparing since 5 o'clock in the morning, the one that had been his father's favorite, the one he asked for every Christmas since he was 8 years old. "Mom, do not be dramatic," he said without even looking at me. Chloe did not mean to. That was when something inside me broke. It was not my hip, although it hurt terribly. It was something deeper, something that had been cracking for months and finally gave way on that oak floor Arthur and I had installed in 1987. My name is Eleanor Vance, widow of Arthur Vance. I am 68 years old, and this 3-story house in Oak Park, Illinois, with its hydrangea bushes in the yard and its kitchen that smells like cinnamon, is mine. Arthur and I paid for it by selling everything we had. He worked double shifts at the auto assembly plant for 15 years. I sold homemade pies and casseroles door to door. When Ryan was born, I carried the baby in a sling while delivering orders. This house is worth over $1,500,000 now, according to the appraiser that Chloe accidentally brought over 2 months ago. $1,500,000 that she looks at with shark eyes every time she walks down these hallways that I clean, by these walls that I paint, through this garden that I water every afternoon. But at that moment, lying on the floor in front of 14 people who supposedly loved me, the only thing that had any value was my dignity. And that, definitely, was priceless. Susan helped me up. Her hands were shaking with contained rage. "Eleanor, let us get out of here," she whispered to me. But I shook my head. This was my house. I was not going anywhere. I dusted off my skirt. I felt the pain in my hip shoot down my leg, but I stood up straight. I looked Chloe right in the eyes. Those hazel eyes that my son found so beautiful and that I now saw exactly as they were. Calculating, cold, hungry. "You are right," I told her with a calmness I did not know I had. "This chair holds important memories." Chloe smiled, thinking she had won. Poor thing, she had no idea. "It is the chair where Arthur sat every Christmas," I continued, and my voice did not shake, "where he would bless the table, where he would give us his speech about family and gratitude. But Arthur is dead, Chloe, 5 years ago. And I am his wife, the owner of this house, the mother of that man who has not lifted a single finger to defend me." The silence now was different, heavy, thick like the gravy that had gone cold on the table. "So sit there yourself if you want," I told her. "After all, it seems you have already decided to take over everything else." I saw Ryan finally lift his head. I saw the surprise on his face, as if he suddenly remembered that I still existed. That I was not just another piece of furniture in this house that he and his wife had already started dividing up in their minds. I went back to my spot. Not in Arthur's chair, but in my own chair. the one that had always been mine, by the window overlooking the lemon tree I planted when Ryan started high school. I sat with my back straight, even though my hip was screaming, and I kept eating. The rest of the night passed in a thick tension. Chloe did not speak again, neither did Ryan. My siblings tried to make small talk about the weather, about the kids, about anything other than the elephant in the room that they had just witnessed. My daughter-in-law pushed me to the floor, and my son had said absolutely nothing. But I smiled, because while I cut my piece of pecan pie, while I poured fresh brewed coffee into the fine Lenox china cups I inherited from my mother, while I half listened to the nervous conversations, my mind was somewhere else. I was thinking about the letter Arthur had left me before he died, the one I kept in his study, in the drawer no one else knew how to open because it had a special lock. I was thinking about all the documents I had signed, the deeds, the wills. I was thinking about Arthur's old cell phone that still worked and had messages Ryan had never seen. I was thinking that Chloe had made a mistake, a massive mistake. She had underestimated me. That night, after everyone left and the house grew completely silent, after Ryan and Chloe locked themselves in their bedroom without even asking if I was okay, I did not go to sleep. I went to Arthur's study, and what I found there changed everything. But that is what Chloe would discover 3 days later, when she woke up to 23 missed calls and her perfect world shattered into pieces. But let me explain how we got to this point. Because no one pushes a mother-in-law at the Christmas dinner table out of nowhere. This was slowly simmering, like the homemade chili Arthur loved so much, for 8 full months. Everything started on the day of my husband's funeral, 5 years ago, on a gray Tuesday in February. Arthur had died of a heart attack while pruning the roses in the front yard. He fell among the flowers he tended to every Sunday, his hands still dirty with soil. Finding him like that was the hardest thing I have ever lived through. 42 years of marriage ended in a single breath. The wake was long, the church was packed, Arthur was loved in the neighborhood. He helped the neighbors. He lent out his tools. He always had a piece of advice or a helping hand to offer. Ryan cried while hugging me, and I, despite my pain, felt that at least we had each other. Chloe arrived at the funeral wearing sky-high heels and a black dress that seemed more appropriate for a cocktail party than a burial. She had been married to Ryan for 3 years, but that day I saw her differently. While I was receiving condolences, while I hugged the people mourning the loss of my Arthur, she walked around the house, looking, evaluating. I saw her open drawers in the kitchen. I saw her touch the living room drapes, as if calculating how old they were. I saw her stand in front of the mahogany bookcase in the study and run her finger along the edge, checking for dust that was not there because I cleaned this house as if it were a temple. "This is a very big house for one person," she told me that night, after everyone had left. We were in the kitchen. I was washing coffee mugs with hands trembling from holding back my tears. "Are you not afraid to stay here all alone, Mom?" Mom, that is what she called me, with a sweet tone that had pure poison underneath. "This is my house," I answered. "Arthur and I built it. I raised Ryan here. All my memories are here." She smiled, a smile that did not reach her eyes. Of course, I was just saying. The first few months after Arthur's death were a living hell of loneliness. The house that had always been full of life now creaked with silence. I would brew coffee for 2 out of habit and then remember. I would set the table for 2. I would talk to myself, thinking he would answer me from the yard. Ryan came to visit me on Sundays, but the visits became more spaced out. First every 2 weeks, then once a month. Always with excuses. Work, commitments, exhaustion. Chloe never accompanied him. She has a migraine, she is out with friends, she has errands to run. But I knew the truth. Chloe did not want to come because this house reminded her that it was not hers. Not yet. The real change came 8 months ago. Ryan showed up on a Saturday afternoon without calling ahead. He had dark circles under his eyes and a worried look on his face. He sat with me in the living room, on the same couch where I used to read him bedtime stories when he was a little boy. "Mom, I need to talk to you," he said, and his tone made my skin crawl. "Chloe and I have been thinking. This house is too big for you. 3 stories, the yard, the stairs. What if you fall? What if you get sick, and there is no one here?" I felt my heart tighten. "Ryan, I am 68 years old, not 90. I am perfectly fine. I know, but what would you think about us moving in with you? That way you are not alone, and we can take care of you. Plus, we could save the money we spend on rent for our apartment. It is a win-win for everyone. I should have said no. I should have listened to that voice in my head screaming danger, but he was my son. My only son. And the house felt so empty without Arthur. All right, I said. But this is still my house, my rules. Ryan hugged me. Of course, Mom, it will always be your house. They moved in a week later, and with them came the beginning of my nightmare. On the very first day, Chloe brought in 2 interior decorators. Just to freshen up the place a bit, Mom. Nothing personal, but this place needs to be modernized. Modernized meant that the lace curtains I had hand-embroidered disappeared. The pictures of Arthur you have in the living room make the atmosphere too depressing. It is better if we put them away. The linen tablecloth we used at Christmas is too worn out. I brought a new one from Pottery Barn. My space began to shrink. First, I lost the living room, then the dining room. Arthur's study became Ryan's home office, even though he never actually worked in there. My sewing room, where I used to make dresses for the neighborhood kids, was transformed into a home gym with exercise equipment that Chloe never used. It is just that this house needs updating, Mom. It looks like a museum. We need to bring it into the 21st century, Chloe would tell me every time I protested, and Ryan, my son, my little boy, he would just nod. Mom, do not be so old-fashioned. A little change never hurt anybody. But the change that hurt the most happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I had gone out to church, like I do every Tuesday. When I got back, I found Chloe in my bedroom. My bedroom? She was going through my jewelry box. What are you doing? I asked from the doorway. She jumped but quickly regained her composure. Oh, Mom, you scared me. I was just admiring your jewelry. You have some really beautiful pieces. She closed the jewelry box, but I saw the gleam in her eyes. The exact same gleam she had when she looked around the house after Arthur's funeral. That night I checked my jewelry box. The garnet necklace was missing. The necklace Arthur's mother had given me on my wedding day. Antique garnets set in vintage silver, with a clasp engraved with our initials. It was not the most expensive thing I owned, but it was the most valuable. It was history. It was love. It was memory. I searched the entire house. Nothing. 3 days later, Susan sent me a screenshot from Instagram. It was Chloe, at a fancy dinner party, wearing my necklace. The caption read, "Vintage vibes with family heirlooms. Heirlooms." As if I were already dead. As if my life were just an obstacle between her and what she wanted. I confronted Ryan that same afternoon. I waited for him to get home from work. I intercepted him in the entryway, before Chloe could hear us. I held my phone in my hand with the Instagram photo open. Ryan, I need to talk to you. It is about your grandmother's garnet necklace. My son did not even look me in the eyes. He took off his tie, looking exhausted, and sighed, as if I were just one more problem on his daily to-do list. What is it now, Mom? Those words. What is it now? As if I were the one causing trouble. As if demanding respect in my own home was a nuisance. I showed him the picture. Chloe is wearing the necklace your grandmother gave me, the one that disappeared from my jewelry box 3 days ago. Did you give her permission to take it? Ryan glanced at the screen for barely a second. Oh, Mom. She just borrowed it. She is going to give it back. Borrowed? She went into my bedroom without permission, took something that does not belong to her, and is showing it off on social media as if it were an inheritance that already belongs to her. You are overreacting. Those 3 words hit me harder than the shove that would come months later. Overreacting. Me. The woman who had raised this man all by herself for years, while Arthur worked double shifts. The woman who sold homemade pies at 5 o'clock in the morning to pay for the out-of-state private college he wanted to attend. The woman who stayed up late mending his clothes because we did not have money to buy new ones. I am not overreacting, Ryan. That necklace holds sentimental value you cannot buy in any jewelry store. Your grandmother handed it to me herself 2 hours before I married your father. She told me, take care of it like you take care of your marriage. With love and respect. And now, your wife just takes it like it is nothing. Ryan ran his hand through his hair. that exact same gesture he used to make as a little boy when he did not want to face something. Mom, Chloe did not know it was that important to you. Besides, do you not think you are being a little selfish? Selfish. The word hung between us like toxic smoke. I felt the air leave my lungs. My own son, the baby I nursed for 2 years because we could not afford formula, was calling me selfish for wanting to keep the little I had left of his father and grandmother. Selfish? I repeated, and my voice sounded hollow even to myself. Defending what is mine is selfishness? It is just a necklace, Mom. It will not kill you to let her borrow it. Chloe will take good care of it. At that moment, Chloe appeared on the staircase. She was wearing designer sweatpants and a silk blouse that cost more than my Social Security check for 2 months. She had cut her hair. She now wore it short and modern, completely different from the modest style she had when she married Ryan. "Is everything okay?" she asked in that sweet voice she reserved for when there were witnesses around. "Eleanor is upset about the necklace," Ryan said, and I noticed how he stopped calling me Mom in front of her. Eleanor, as if I were a stranger. Chloe calmly walked down the stairs, smiling. "Oh, Mom, I am so sorry. I had no idea it would upset you. I saw it in your jewelry box when I was looking for some aspirin in your nightstand, and I thought it was absolutely gorgeous. I figured you would not mind if I wore it for one evening, to feel like part of the family." Liar. The aspirin was in the bathroom medicine cabinet, not in my bedroom. And my jewelry box was on the dresser, not the nightstand. But she spun her lie with the same ease I used to spin yarn, and Ryan swallowed it whole. "Of course I am giving it back," she went on. "I sent it to get cleaned at a high-end jeweler in the Diamond District. The stones were looking dull, Mom. It needed a professional cleaning. You are going to love how it turns out. A professional cleaning. As if I had not cared for that necklace for 40 years. As if my hands were dirty or careless. When are you giving it back to me?" I asked directly. "As soon as it is ready. A week, maybe 2 at the most." 2 weeks went by, then 3, then a month. Every time I asked, Chloe had a different excuse. "Oh, I forgot to pick it up. The jeweler is on vacation. There was an issue with the insurance, but it is almost ready." By the 2nd month, I stopped asking, because I understood something. She was never going to give it back, and Ryan was never going to make her. One afternoon, Susan came to visit me. We had not really talked in a while, between Ryan and Chloe moving in and my own shame at admitting that things were not going well. My sister sat with me in the kitchen, the only room Chloe had not updated yet, because she claimed cooking was not her thing. "Eleanor, are you okay?" Susan asked me, as I poured her some fresh brewed coffee. "You look thinner, quieter." And right there, in my own kitchen, surrounded by the smell of cinnamon that always brought me comfort, I broke down. I told her everything. The necklace, the changes to the house, how Chloe went into my room without permission, how my things were slowly disappearing. Arthur's pictures put away so they would not depress anyone, my tablecloths replaced, my spaces modernized. Susan grabbed my hands. Her eyes were filled with tears of absolute rage. "That woman is pushing you out of your own home, Eleanor, and Ryan is letting her do it." "He is my son," I whispered. "I cannot fight with my son, but he can fight with you, right? He can choose her over you." I did not answer, because we both knew it was the truth. That night, while Ryan and Chloe went out to dinner with friends, I went into their bedroom. I am not proud of having done it, but I needed to know. I needed to confirm what my heart already knew. I found my necklace in her jewelry box, tucked away among gold bracelets and diamond earrings I had never seen before. My mother-in-law's garnet necklace, right alongside other pieces I immediately recognized. My mother's pearl earrings, the jade brooch Arthur gave me for our 20th anniversary, a silver bracelet with turquoise stones that belonged to my grandmother. Chloe had not sent anything to be cleaned. She had stolen my life, piece by piece, and stashed it in her jewelry box like spoils of war. I grabbed the necklace. It was mine, but as I was about to leave, I saw something else. A notebook, lying open on her vanity, filled with notes. Oak Park House, appraised at $1,500,000. Sell and buy a luxury condo downtown. Antique jewelry, approximately $40,000 if sold separately. My hand shook as I held that notebook. There it was, in black and white. The inventory of my life, the blueprint to get rid of me. And the worst part was that I was only discovering the tip of the iceberg, because what I would hear that very night, 3 weeks before Christmas, would break my heart in a way I never imagined possible. I put the notebook back exactly as I found it. I only took my garnet necklace, and I walked out of that bedroom with my heart pounding in my ears. I felt completely nauseous. I could not sleep that night. I sat on my bed, clutching the necklace in my hands, wondering how I had gotten to this point. Susan returned 3 days later with reinforcements. She brought Mr. Henderson, our longtime neighbor. He lived 2 doors down, in that beautiful brick colonial with the wrought iron balconies. He had been an attorney for 40 years before retiring, and he was one of Arthur's closest friends. On Sundays, they used to sit together, drink beers, and talk about politics, football, and life. Mr. Henderson was 72 years old, with stark white hair and sharp blue eyes that never missed a thing. He arrived that day carrying a worn leather briefcase tucked under his arm and a deeply concerned look on his face. "Eleanor," he told me, after Susan poured him some coffee, "your sister told me what is going on, and I do not like the sound of it one bit." We were sitting in the kitchen with the door closed. Chloe had gone out shopping and Ryan was at work. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe easily in my own home. "Mr. Henderson, I do not want to cause any trouble," I started to say, but he held up a hand to stop me. "The trouble is already here, Eleanor. The question is whether you are going to do something about it, or if you are going to let them force you out of your own house." I stayed quiet. Susan squeezed my hand. Mr. Henderson opened his briefcase and pulled out some papers. "Arthur came to see me 2 months before he passed away. We updated his will. Did you know that?" I shook my head. "Arthur had never mentioned a word to me. He wanted to make absolutely sure you were protected. This house is in your name, Eleanor. Only your name. Arthur set it up that way 10 years ago. There are also life insurance policies for $250,000 and mutual fund investments for another $175,000. Everything is in your name." Tears burned my eyes. My Arthur, taking care of me even after he was gone. "But there is something else, Mr. Henderson continued, his tone turning dead serious. "3 weeks ago, your daughter-in-law came to see me." I felt my blood run cold. "Chloe went to see you?" "Yes. She asked me about inheritance proceedings, about how wills work, and what happens when an elderly person can no longer manage their properties. She specifically asked me about nursing homes and legal guardianship." Susan let out a curse word that would make a sailor blush. "I told her I could not give her any of that information without your consent," Mr. Henderson explained. But the conversation left me deeply unsettled. "That girl is planning something, Eleanor, and it is nothing good. She has a notebook," I blurted out, "with appraisals. The house, the jewelry. Everything is written down." Mr. Henderson nodded, as if that simply confirmed his suspicions. "You need to protect yourself. Right now, before it is too late." "But she is my son's wife," I protested, even though my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. "I cannot simply what? Defend what belongs to you? What Arthur worked 40 years to give you? Eleanor, listen to me very carefully. That woman is a snake, and snakes bite." Susan leaned in toward me. "Sister, I love you. And because I love you, I am going to give it to you straight. You are being naive. Chloe is using you. And Ryan, forgive me for putting it this way, but your son is a coward who chose that woman over his own mother." I wanted to defend him. I wanted to say that Ryan was just confused, that she was gaslighting him, that deep down he was still my little boy. But the words would not come out, because deep down I knew Susan was right. That afternoon, after Miss Henderson and Susan left, I stayed alone in the kitchen making dinner. I was chopping onions for the green bean casserole when I heard voices upstairs. Chloe had come back, and she was talking on the phone. I walked over to the bottom of the stairs. Not to snoop, I told myself, just to see if she needed anything. "No, baby, not yet," Chloe was saying, and her voice had that sweet, coaxing tone she used with Ryan. But almost. The old lady is getting more confused by the day. The other day she forgot where she put her keys. Yesterday she complained that her head hurt all day long. Lies. I had not forgotten any keys. And my head hurt because I had spent nights wide awake, worrying about all of this. I already talked to that neighborhood lawyer. He is a bitter old man. He refused to help me. But I found another one downtown who says he can expedite the paperwork if we prove she cannot live on her own anymore. Yes, my love. $1,500,000. Just imagine what we can do with that. A luxury condo downtown. That new car you wanted, that vacation to Europe. $1,500,000. The price of my life. The price of 40 years of hard work, of love, of memories. Ryan is totally on board now. Last night I told him I caught your mom talking to herself in the yard, that I am worried she is losing her mind. Poor guy. He got so sad. But it is for her own good, right? Modern assisted living facilities are nice. They have gardens, activities. She will be way better off there than all alone in this massive house. I covered my mouth so I would not scream, so I would not march up those stairs and confront her face to face, because I needed to hear more. I needed to know exactly how deep this betrayal went. The Christmas dinner? Yes, everybody is coming. Her siblings, the nieces and nephews, the whole family. It is going to be perfect. The more witnesses who see how fragile she is, the better for us. You know, a little push here, a moment of confusion there, nothing major. Just enough so everyone gets worried and supports the idea of the nursing home. A little push. The words echoed in my head like warning sirens. I walked up to my room in total silence. I locked the door, something I had started doing ever since I caught Chloe rummaging through my things. I sat on the bed I had shared with Arthur for 40 years and hugged his photograph. What do I do, my love? I whispered to his picture. What do I do? But Arthur could not answer. And I was completely alone, in my own home, being hunted like prey by the woman my son had chosen over me. Susan was right. Mr. Henderson was right. Everyone was right. But I was still not ready to accept it. I still believed Ryan would snap out of it, that he would stand up for me, that he would remember who raised him. I still believed in my son's love. And that belief, that foolish hope, almost cost me everything. The following days were a silent torture. Every time I looked at Chloe, I remembered her phone call. A little push here, a moment of confusion there. Every time Ryan asked me how I was doing, I wondered if he genuinely cared or if he was just evaluating how fragile I looked. Christmas was approaching, and I kept making the preparations like an automaton. I bought the prime rib. I pulled the Christmas decorations down from the attic. I scrubbed the house from top to bottom, even though every movement hurt. Not physically. The pain was deeper inside, in that place where we store our love for our children. Chloe watched me. I could feel her, like a vulture waiting for its prey to stop moving. On the night of December 23rd, Susan called to confirm she would come over early the next day to help me with dinner. "Are you absolutely sure you want to host this dinner, Eleanor?" she asked. "After everything you told me." "It is Christmas," I replied, "and it is still my house, my family." But that night, the night of December 24th, my world finished crumbling. It was 11 o'clock at night. I could not sleep. Insomnia had become my constant companion over those months. I walked down to the kitchen in my slippers and bathrobe to make myself some herbal tea. While the water was boiling, I heard voices. They were coming from Ryan and Chloe's bedroom. Their door was cracked open. I should have walked away. I should have gone up to my room and covered my ears. But something stopped me. That same desperate need to know the truth that had pushed me to check Chloe's notebook. That need to confirm if a tiny piece of the little boy I raised still existed. I stepped closer in the hallway. From there, I could hear perfectly. "Ryan, I cannot take this anymore," Chloe was saying, her voice sounding exhausted. "This house is falling apart. It needs repairs that cost a fortune, and your mother refuses to invest a dime into it." "Well, to her this house is sacred," Ryan answered, and my heart skipped a beat. Maybe, just maybe, he would still defend me. Sacred? It is old and outdated. Ryan, this property is worth over $1,500,000, $1.5 million. We could sell it and buy an incredible condo downtown, with security, a gym, a pool modern, comfortable, and we would have money left over to invest. I know, but I cannot just kick my mom out of her own house. Silence. A silence that made me hold my breath. "You do not have to kick her out," Chloe said, and her tone shifted. It became soft, manipulative. "There are beautiful places for seniors, babe. Communities with gardens, with nurses on staff, with activities. Places where people her age can socialize, make friends, be around others." "A nursing home," Ryan said, and the word dropped like an anvil. "An assisted living facility," Chloe corrected him. "It is not the same thing. They are beautiful places, Ryan, and she would be much better off there than all alone in this huge house. Think about it. What if she falls down the stairs? What if she gets sick in the middle of the night? What if she forgets to turn off the stove? My mom is fine. She is 68 years old, not 90. Babe, I have seen her forgetting things, talking to herself out in the yard, getting confused with dates. It is nobody's fault, it is just her age, but she needs care that we cannot provide for her. Lies. It was all lies. But my son. Let me think about it," Ryan said, after what felt like an eternity of silence. And right there, that was when something inside of me died. He did not say, "You are crazy." He did not say, "I would never do that." He did not say, "She is my mother and she is staying in her home." He said, "Let me think about it. My son was actually considering locking me up in a nursing home so he could sell my house and buy himself a luxury condo downtown. Think about it seriously," Chloe went on, and I heard the bed creak. "Your mom lived her life, she had her marriage, she raised her son, she enjoyed this house for 40 years. Now it is our turn. We have the right to build our future. And this old shell of a house is not the future, Ryan. It is the past, old shell." That is what she called the house where my husband died pruning roses, the house that witnessed my son's first steps, the walls we painted together, the hardwood floors we picked out with such care. "You are right that she cannot maintain this place on her own anymore," Ryan admitted, and with those words, he signed my death warrant. I backed away from the hallway. My legs were shaking. I made it to my room without knowing how. I locked the door, and there, all alone in the dark, I hugged my wedding photo with Arthur. I was 26 years old in that photo. Arthur was 28. We looked so young, so full of hope. He had promised to take care of me forever. We had built this life together. Sweat, tears, sacrifices. We sold everything just to buy this lot. We lived in an unfinished construction zone for 3 years. We ate boxed macaroni and cheese and peanut butter sandwiches for months just to pay for building materials. And we had a son we loved with every fiber of our being, a son for whom Arthur worked double shifts while I sold pies before dawn, a son who got his college degree in architecture paid for in full because I sewed and hemmed dresses for the neighborhood teenagers, a son who had absolutely everything we never did. That very same son was now in the next room, contemplating locking me up in a nursing home to sell my house and buy a fancy condo downtown. I cried that night like I had not cried since Arthur passed away. I wept in silence, my face buried in my pillow so they would not hear me. I cried over the sheer naivety of believing that a mother's unconditional love was automatically reciprocated. I cried for every sacrifice I ever made, thinking it mattered. I cried because my son viewed me as an obstacle, not as his mother. But amidst the tears, something else began to grow. It was not sadness. It was something hotter, darker, far more powerful. It was rage. Rage because I had allowed this to go so far. Rage because I had made myself shrink in my own home. Rage because I had tolerated insults, theft, and blatant disrespect. All just to keep the peace with a son who did not value me. I got out of bed. I looked at myself in the vanity mirror. My eyes were bloodshot. My hair was a mess. My bathrobe was wrinkled. I looked old, tired, defeated. "No," I whispered to my reflection. "Not anymore." I opened the secret drawer in my vanity, the one Arthur had installed for me to keep important documents safe. I pulled everything out: the deed to the house, the life insurance policies, the mutual fund certificates, the will, and I found something else. A letter, written in Arthur's handwriting, dated 2 weeks before his death. "My Eleanor, if you are reading this, it is because I am no longer with you. I want you to know that this house is yours, only yours. I put it in your name because I trust you and no one else. If anyone ever tries to push you out of here, if anyone tries to make you feel like you do not belong in your own home, fight back. Do not let anyone, absolutely anyone, make you feel small. You are stronger than you think. I love you. Always. Arthur. I read the letter 3 times. With each reading, I felt the rage crystallize into sheer determination, into clarity, into purpose. Arthur was right. I was stronger than I thought. And on Christmas Eve, during the dinner that I prepared myself, with my entire family as witnesses, Chloe was going to hand me the perfect opportunity to prove it. The morning of December 25th dawned bright and clear. Too clear for what was coming. I got up at 5 o'clock, like I always did on Christmas. I started prepping the prime rib. I made the homemade stuffing for the turkey. I baked the green bean casserole with crispy onions, following my mother's recipe. I chopped the vegetables for the cranberry walnut salad. I did it all by myself. Chloe finally made an appearance at 11 o'clock, already fully made up and with her hair styled, wearing a tight red dress that left very little to the imagination. "Oh, Mom, why did you not wake me up? I would have helped you," she said while pouring herself a cup of coffee. Lie. She never helped me. She did not even know which cabinets held the pots and pans. Ryan came downstairs half an hour later, wearing sweatpants, looking hungover. He had stayed up late watching movies, he claimed. He did not say good morning to me. He just asked if the coffee was ready. The family started arriving at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. First Susan, thank God, bringing her famous snickerdoodle cookies and hot apple cider. Then my brother Robert, with his wife Linda and their 3 grown kids. Then my sister Barbara with her family. In total, there were 14 of us in the dining room. My dining room, with the tablecloth I embroidered 20 years ago, with the fine Lenox china Arthur gave me on our 15th anniversary, with the crystal goblets I inherited from my grandmother. Everything was perfect. The table looked gorgeous. The smell of roasted turkey and warm apple cider filled the house. The kids were running around playing in the yard. It was Christmas. It should have been a happy day. Chloe sat next to Ryan, on the left side of the table. Susan was to my right. I was just about to sit in my usual spot, by the window near the lemon tree, when Chloe abruptly stood up. "Wait," she said loudly. Everyone turned to look at her. "Not that chair." I froze, my hand resting on the back of my chair. "Excuse me?" Chloe pointed to the empty chair near the head of the table. The chair where Arthur had always sat. No one had sat there in 5 years. It was an unspoken agreement, a way to honor his memory. "That chair," Chloe said, and her voice sounded strangely high-pitched. "That chair holds the memory of my father-in-law. You cannot just sit there like it is nothing." Silence fell over the table, like a heavy blanket. Everyone was looking at us, at her, at me, waiting. "Chloe," I said slowly, trying to maintain my composure. "That is Arthur's chair, my husband, and I am not sitting there. I am sitting in my chair, the one I always use." But she was not listening, or she did not want to listen. Her eyes were gleaming, her jaw was clenched tight, as if this months-long performance had finally reached its climax. As if this was the exact moment she had been rehearsing for. "No," she screamed. "That chair is sacred. Get up out of there." And then she did it. She shoved me, both of her hands flat against my chest. Hard, with absolutely no warning. I am 68 years old. My bones are not what they used to be. My reflexes are not either. I did not have time to grab onto anything. I just felt the impact, the loss of balance, and then the floor. The thud was sickening. Horrible. My right hip smashed against the vintage oak floor Arthur and I installed in 1987. Pain shot through me like a lightning bolt. For a split second, I could not breathe. The world went completely silent. Then, everything exploded. "Eleanor!" Susan yelled, jumping up immediately. Her hands reached for me. She tried to help me stand. "What did you just do to her?" Robert roared, standing up with so much force that his chair tipped over backward. "She is crazy," my niece Emma shrieked, and I saw the glare of her cell phone screen. She was recording. Of course she was recording. Everything is content nowadays. But what hurt the most, what utterly destroyed me, was Ryan's silence. My son was sitting there with his fork halfway to his mouth. He was looking at me lying there on the floor, in my wrinkled beige skirt, my white blouse stained with gravy, my dignity shattered to pieces. And he did not move a muscle. "Ryan," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Son." He lowered his fork slowly. "Mom, do not be dramatic," he said, and the words landed like boulders on my bruised chest. Chloe did not mean to. He did not finish his sentence. He did not fully defend her. But he did not defend me, either. Chloe was still standing, breathing heavily, her hands still extended from the shove. Her red dress looked even brighter under the Christmas lights. She looked like a queen standing in her newly conquered castle. "That chair holds the memory of your father," she yelled at me, though her voice was shaking a little now. "You cannot disrespect him by sitting there." And right then, lying on the floor of my own home, with my family looking at me as if I were a stranger, with my son choosing not to choose me, I understood something fundamental. This was not an accident. This was not a sudden burst of holiday emotion. This was theater. Carefully orchestrated theater designed so my entire family would see me exactly how Chloe wanted them to see me. A confused old woman causing trouble, a fragile lady who could no longer take care of herself. A little push here, a moment of confusion there. Her words from that phone call echoed in my mind with crystal clarity. Susan helped me to my feet. I felt a sharp, stabbing pain in my hip, but I refused to let it show. I dusted off my skirt, smoothed down my hair, stood up perfectly straight, and smiled. That smile must have been terrifying because I saw Chloe take a physical step backward. "You are right," I told her in a clear, unwavering voice. "This chair is sacred. It is the chair where my husband sat, where he would bless this table, where he spoke about family and respect. But Arthur died 5 years ago, and I am his widow, the owner of this house, the one who cooked this meal, the one who invited all of you." I walked slowly around the table. Every single step hurt, but it did not matter. Everyone was watching me. Every pair of eyes in that room was fixed directly on me. "So you sit there if you want, Chloe," I continued. "After all, you have already decided to appropriate everything else. My necklace, my jewelry, my space. Why not the chair too?" The silence now was different, dense, profoundly uncomfortable. I saw my siblings look at each other. I saw Linda's mouth drop open in shock. I saw my nieces and nephews put their cell phones away. I sat down in my chair, not Arthur's chair, but mine, the one I always used, and I kept eating. Because what no one at that table knew was that I had already made a decision. And that very night, while everyone was sleeping, I was going to set a plan into motion that would change absolutely everything forever. The dinner ended in a thick, suffocating silence. A few people tried to make polite conversation about the weather, about the gifts, about anything other than the giant elephant in the room, that my daughter-in-law had just shoved me to the floor in front of the entire family, and my son had done absolutely nothing to defend me. Susan stayed late, helping me clean up. Chloe had marched upstairs to her bedroom immediately after dessert, claiming she had a migraine. Ryan followed her like a lapdog. My siblings left with awkward hugs and looks of pity that burned me worse than any insult. "Eleanor, come stay with me tonight," Susan begged as we washed the dishes. "Do not stay here with that snake." "This is my house," I replied, my voice sounding much steadier than I actually felt. "I am not going anywhere." Susan hugged me fiercely before leaving. "Be careful, sister. That woman is dangerous." "I know," I thought to myself, "but she has no idea how dangerous I can be." By 11 o'clock at night, the house was completely silent. I heard the door to Ryan and Chloe's bedroom click shut. The hallway lights went out. I waited 1 more hour, sitting on my bed, counting every single minute on the wall clock that had belonged to my mother. At midnight, I crept down the stairs barefoot. Every step creaked as if it were trying to give me away, but I kept going. My hip was aching terribly from the fall, but the physical pain was absolutely nothing compared to what was burning inside my chest. Arthur's study was on the ground floor, at the end of the hallway. Nobody ever went in there. Chloe had briefly looked through it when they moved in, but since she did not spot anything valuable at first glance, she had left it alone. "Just old papers and boring books," she had told Ryan. But she did not know the secrets that room held. I did. I locked the door behind me and only turned on the small desk lamp. The yellowish light illuminated the wood-paneled walls, the shelves packed with engineering books, our wedding picture hanging above the metal filing cabinet. I went straight to the desk. The main drawer had a lock that looked ordinary, but Arthur had taught me the trick to it. You had to press a very specific corner while pulling, otherwise it would not open. It had been his way of keeping important documents safe. I pressed. I pulled. The drawer gave way. Inside was everything. The deed to the house, bearing my name in large, clear letters. Eleanor Vance, widow of Arthur Vance, sole owner. The life insurance policies Arthur had taken out. $250,000 that I did not even know existed. Investment certificates in treasury bonds for another $175,000. A savings account at Chase Bank with $100,000. My husband had left me over $500,000 in insurance and investments alone. And here I was, living with anxiety, wondering if I could manage to maintain the house on my Social Security check of $1,800 a month. But what struck me the most was the handwritten letter, dated 2 weeks before his death. The exact same one I had found days ago, but now I read it with completely different eyes. Eleanor, this house is yours, no one else's. If anyone tries to push you out, if anyone tries to make you believe you cannot handle things on your own, fight back. You are stronger than you think. My tears burned, but not from sadness. They burned with pure determination. I kept looking through the files. I found the updated will Arthur had drawn up with Mr. Henderson. Everything was crystal clear. The house went to me. The investments went to me. Ryan would inherit only a modest rental property in Milwaukee that Arthur had purchased years ago, valued at roughly $250,000. A nice sum, sure, but nothing compared to the $1,500,000 the Oak Park house was worth. And there was a specific clause that made my blood run cold. If my wife Eleanor Vance is unable or unwilling to maintain the primary residence, it shall be donated to a foundation for vulnerable elderly women. Under no circumstances shall it be inherited directly by my son Ryan Vance. Arthur had known. Somehow, he had anticipated this. He had protected his house, our legacy, from the clutches of anyone who might try to take advantage. But there was something else. In the bottom drawer, wrapped in a plastic bag, sat Arthur's old cell phone, the one he used before upgrading to a new model a year before he died. I had stored all his old electronics in there, completely unable to throw them away. They were pieces of him. I pulled it out. It still had battery power. Arthur had always been meticulous about fully charging everything before storing it away. It powered on slowly, the screen lighting up with a photo of us in Florida. I knew the passcode, 1508, the date of our anniversary. The phone unlocked. I started scrolling through the text messages, conversations with Ryan from 4 years ago. And there it was. All of it. Dad, Chloe wants us to invest in a business. We need $50,000. Could you lend it to us? Son, I do not have that kind of liquid cash right now. What business are you talking about? A restaurant with her cousins. It is a really good investment. Ryan, be careful. Going into business with family usually ends badly. And $50,000 is a lot of money. You are always so negative. Chloe knows what she is doing. I kept reading. Messages from months later. Dad, the business failed. We lost everything. Chloe is furious. I am sorry, son. What happened? Her cousins turned out to be thieves. They kept all the money. Chloe says it is my fault for not looking into it well enough. Ryan, you are responsible for your own decisions, not Chloe. Where did you two get that $50,000? From my savings. And a few credit cards. Credit cards, son, that is dangerous. More messages. These were from 2 years ago. Dad, how much is the Oak Park house worth? Chloe is asking. Why is she asking about that? Just curious. She says you should sell it and buy something smaller, something easier to maintain. Ryan, that house belongs to me and your mother. We worked 40 years to pay it off. It is not for sale. And tell Chloe to stay out of business that does not concern her. Do not get so defensive. It was just a suggestion. When I pass away, that house will belong to your mother. Only your mother. She will decide what to do with it. Understood? Yes, Dad. But the most revealing text was dated exactly 3 weeks before Arthur's death. "Ryan, I updated my will with Mr. Henderson. Your mother is fully protected. The house, the investments, everything. If anything happens to me, take care of your mom. Take care of your mom, not the inheritance. She gave you everything you have. Do not forget that." "Okay, Dad. Rest, rest." As if my son knew Arthur was tired. As if he had anticipated something. I locked the phone with trembling hands. It was all right there. The lies, the manipulation, Chloe's blatant attempts to get her hands on our assets for years, and Arthur had seen the truth. That is exactly why he had updated his will. That is why he put everything exclusively in my name. I sat there in that study, surrounded by my husband's books and memories, and I felt something fundamental shift inside me. I was no longer the confused, easily manipulated old woman Chloe desperately wanted me to be. I was no longer the naive mother waiting for her son to snap out of it. I was Eleanor Vance, widow of Arthur Vance, the rightful owner of a $1,500,000 house, with over $500,000 in investments and life insurance, backed by legal documents, armed with hard evidence of everything, and fueled by a cold, calculating rage that I was going to use to reclaim my entire life. Because if Chloe wanted a war, she was going to get a war. She just did not realize she had woken up the wrong woman. The next 3 days were a flawless performance. I acted like the same old Eleanor. Accommodating, quiet, invisible. I cooked breakfast. I cleaned the house. I forced a smile when Chloe made her venomous comments about how outdated the living room looked or how desperately the kitchen needed a renovation. But on the inside, I was an entirely different person. Every move I made was strictly calculated. Every word I spoke was carefully measured. Because I now possessed something Chloe never did, a foolproof plan. On December 26th, while Chloe slept until noon and Ryan watched television, I left the house. I told them I was going to church. A lie. I went straight to Mr. Henderson's house. He welcomed me into his study, a wood-paneled room that smelled of pipe tobacco and old books. I sat across from his desk with my purse packed full of documents. "Mr. Henderson, I need your help," I told him bluntly. "And I need this to stay strictly between us." He adjusted his glasses and nodded. "Tell me, Eleanor." I told him everything. The physical shove, the conversation I overheard about locking me away in a nursing home, the notebook listing the appraisals of my house and my jewelry, the items Chloe had been secretly selling behind my back. Absolutely everything. Mr. Henderson listened in dead silence, but I saw his jaw tense tighter and tighter with every word. When I finished, he slammed the palm of his hand down on his desk. "That girl is not just a snake, she is a criminal," he stated firmly. "Selling your jewelry without permission is theft, and conspiring to have you declared legally incapacitated is outright fraud. I want to protect myself," I told him, "but I also want them to learn a lesson. I want them to understand they cannot get away with this." Mr. Henderson smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was a battle smile. "Then we are going to do this the right way. The very right way." We spent the next 2 hours strategizing. Mr. Henderson pulled out legal forms, made phone calls, and took copious notes. By the time I walked out of his house, I had a crystal-clear checklist of what needed to be done. First, change my will. Mr. Henderson would draft a brand new one. If anything mysterious ever happened to me, the house would not go to Ryan. It would go directly to the Oak Park Foundation for Vulnerable Senior Women. Ryan would only receive the rental property in Milwaukee, and if he or Chloe ever tried to contest the will, he would forfeit even that. Second, update the beneficiaries on my bank accounts and insurance policies. Everything would transfer to Susan, held in a trust for my care as long as I lived. Ryan would not see a single dime. Third, change the locks on my bedroom and Arthur's study. Mr. Henderson knew a discreet locksmith who would come that very same day. Fourth, transfer all my money out of the accounts Ryan knew about into a brand new account that only I could access. Mr. Henderson offered to accompany me to the bank on the 27th. Fifth, install security cameras. Small, discreet, but fully functional. One in the living room, one in the kitchen, one in the hallway. And sixth, the most critical step, gather all the hard evidence. The photos of Chloe wearing my jewelry, the online sales records Susan had tracked down through her Instagram account, the text messages from Arthur's old phone, the security footage we would capture of Chloe sneaking into my room. Everything meticulously documented. Everything backed up. When do we make the final move? Mr. Henderson asked. On December 28th, I answered. Fool's Day. Pretty ironic, is it not? That afternoon, the locksmith arrived. He was an older gentleman, a trusted friend of Mr. Henderson's, who asked absolutely no questions. He replaced the locks on my bedroom door and the study while Chloe was out at the gym, and Ryan was at work. Nobody gets in without your permission now, Mrs. Vance, he told me as he handed over the only 2 keys to each door. Susan came over at dusk, carrying an unassuming shopping bag. The cameras, she whispered, are tiny. They connect right to your cell phone. I will show you how to use them. It took us an hour to set them up. One tucked into the corner of the living room, hidden among the picture frames. One in my bedroom, directly behind the clock. One in the study, nestled in the bookcase. No one would ever notice them unless they were specifically looking for them. Now you can watch everything right from your phone, Susan explained, as she walked me through the app. Anything they pull will be caught on tape. December 27th dawned bitterly cold. Mr. Henderson picked me up at 9 o'clock in the morning. I told Chloe I was going to the doctor. Another lie. We drove straight to the bank. The account executive sat down with me in a private office. I explained that I wanted to completely close out my previous savings account and open a brand new one, and that I wanted to transfer every last penny. Everything, Mrs. Vance? Everything. The $100,000 in savings. And I want to cash out the Treasury bond investments as well. The $175,000. That is $275,000 total. Are you absolutely certain? Completely certain. Mr. Henderson interjected. We also need to update the beneficiaries on the life insurance policies immediately. Half an hour later, it was done. A brand new account. Exclusively in my name. Zero access for anybody else. The beneficiaries officially switched from Ryan to Susan, and I requested a new debit card that would arrive in the mail in 5 business days. One more thing, I told the executive. Can you send all my bank statements to my new email address? I gave her the email account Susan had helped me set up days earlier. I would never again use the one Ryan knew about. As we walked out of the bank, Mr. Henderson squeezed my shoulder. You are doing great, Eleanor. Arthur would be incredibly proud of you. That evening, Ryan came home early from work. He looked completely frantic. He walked straight in looking for Chloe, who was sitting in the living room painting her nails. I need to talk to you, he told her in a hushed voice, but I was standing in the kitchen and I heard every word. I went to the bank today to look into some things for my mom's accounts for the nursing home situation. And the account is completely closed. Dead silence. Closed? Chloe asked, her voice turning shrill. What do you mean closed? Cancelled. Everything was withdrawn. There is absolutely nothing left. What about the investments? Also gone. The accounts are empty. I heard Chloe let out a vicious curse. Your mother did this? The confused, easily manipulated old lady? It has to be a mistake, Ryan said, though he sounded terribly unsure. I will talk to her tomorrow, but I was not going to give him that opportunity. Because on December 28th, the moment the sun came up, I was going to execute the final phase of my plan. That night, before going to sleep, I reread Arthur's text messages on his old phone, especially the very last one. Take care of your mom, not the inheritance. I am so sorry, my love, I thought as I turned off the lamp. Our son made the wrong choice, but I am going to honor your memory the only way I know how, by fiercely defending what we built together. And tomorrow, when Chloe and Ryan wake up, their picture-perfect world is going to start crumbling down, because the confused old lady just showed her claws. I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning on December 28th, not out of habit, but purely from adrenaline. This day would change absolutely everything, and my body knew it. I dressed meticulously, black dress pants, a burgundy blouse, and my pearl necklace that Arthur had gifted me, the one Chloe had never managed to steal because I kept it locked in the secret drawer. I put on my makeup. I styled my hair. I looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back at me was not the same woman who had crumpled to the floor on Christmas. This woman had her shoulders squared, a firm jawline, and fire in her eyes. This woman was fully prepared for war. At 6 o'clock in the morning, I wrote a quick note and left it on the dining room table. Went out to take care of some errands. Back this afternoon. Eleanor. I grabbed my purse, double-checked that I had all the necessary documents, and slipped out of my house without making a single sound. Mr. Henderson was waiting for me outside in his old but reliable Buick. "Ready?" he asked me. More than ready. We headed straight to see his colleague, Attorney Maxwell Vance, a sharp 50-year-old man with an office in a historic building downtown. We showed him absolutely everything. The photos of Chloe parading around in my jewelry, the online sales records Susan had traced, the text messages from Arthur's phone, the security footage clearly showing Chloe sneaking into my locked bedroom without permission. Attorney Vance reviewed everything meticulously. "Mrs. Vance, this is more than enough to press criminal charges for grand theft and fraud. If you wish, we can proceed legally immediately." "Not yet," I replied. "First, I want them to fully grasp the magnitude of what they did. I want them to feel exactly what I felt." He nodded slowly. "Then I highly recommend we draft a legal ultimatum. A formal document giving them 48 hours to vacate the premises entirely or face immediate criminal charges. I will draft it and sign it as your legal counsel." Perfect. We spent the next 2 hours sitting in that office. Attorney Vance drafted the legal notice. I reviewed it and signed it. We also finalized the new will Mr. Henderson had prepared. The house goes straight to the foundation if anything happens to me. Ryan only gets the property in Milwaukee. One last thing, the attorney added. I strongly recommend overhauling your home security system today. Install something only you have control over, Mr. Henderson smiled. I already have a technician lined up. He will be there this afternoon. Meanwhile, back at my house, Chloe and Ryan woke up around 9 o'clock. I know this because my cell phone started ringing at 9:15. "Ryan." I did not answer. He called again. I still did not answer. By 11 o'clock in the morning, I had 23 missed calls. 12 from Ryan, 11 from Chloe. Mr. Henderson and I enjoyed a peaceful lunch at a classic American diner near downtown. Chicken noodle soup, a turkey club sandwich, a side of fries, as if it were just an ordinary day. As if my entire life was not drastically shifting with every passing minute. "Nervous, Mr.?" Henderson asked me. "Terrified," I admitted, but stronger than ever. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the security technician met up with us at Mr. Henderson's house. He was a young guy, highly recommended by the notary's son. He brought a brand new, comprehensive alarm system, complete with motion sensors and remote access controls. "It will take me about 2 hours to install," he explained. "But once I am done, absolutely nobody gets in or out without your direct authorization." Perfect. We pulled up to my house at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The technician in his van, Mr. Henderson in his Buick, and me with my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. The front door swung open before I even touched the knob. Chloe was standing there, looking completely unhinged. Her hair was a tangled mess. Her makeup was smeared. Her eyes were bloodshot. She was wearing sweatpants and a wrinkled t-shirt. Nothing like the perfectly polished woman she flaunted on Instagram. "Where have you been?" She screamed at me before I could even get a word out. "We have been calling you all damn day." "We went to the bank, and—" She stopped dead in her tracks when she saw Mr. Henderson and the technician standing right behind me. "Good afternoon, Chloe," I said with utter calm. "These gentlemen are here to do some installations. Excuse us." I walked into my house. My house. Mr. Henderson and the technician followed right behind me. Chloe stood frozen in the doorway, her mouth hanging wide open. Ryan came sprinting out of the living room. He was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, barefoot, looking like he had not slept a wink. "Mom, what is going on? We went to the bank today and they told us your account is totally closed. Why would you do that without telling us?" I turned around to face him. My son. My little boy, who was no longer a little boy, but a 35-year-old man who had chosen money over his own mother. "Without telling you?" I repeated, and my voice came out much colder than I anticipated. Why on earth would I need to tell you anything about my money, Ryan? But we thought that. Thought what? That it was already your money? That you could go ahead and plan how to spend it? Ryan turned pale. Chloe stomped into the living room like an enraged bull. Listen to me very carefully, you crazy old woman, she shrieked, pointing her finger directly at my face. That account had $100,000 in it, and the investments were another $175,000. We need that money to what? I cut her off sharply. To buy a luxury condo downtown? For a vacation to Europe? For a brand new car? Chloe froze solid. Oh, did you actually think I did not know? I pressed on. Did you think I was just the confused old lady who loses her keys and talks to herself in the yard? The one who desperately needs to be put in a nice assisted living facility with pretty gardens and activities? I watched all the color completely drain from Ryan's face. Mom, I never said. No, you just said let me think about it when your wife suggested locking me up in a nursing home just so you could take my house. The silence that followed was absolute. The technician discreetly began working on installing the new alarm system. Mr. Henderson stood right by my side, as solid as an oak tree. I heard you, I told them. My voice rock steady. The night of December 24th. I heard your entire conversation, every single word, every scheme, every lie. Chloe took a step back. Ryan collapsed onto the sofa. I also found your notebook, Chloe. The one where you took inventory of my house and my jewelry. And I retrieved my garnet necklace from your jewelry box, along with every other piece you stole from me. I did not steal anything, Chloe stammered, but her voice was pathetically weak. No? Then please explain the sales records on your Instagram account. $40,000 worth of antique jewelry sold off over the last 6 months. Jewelry that belonged to me. Jewelry that magically vanished from my bedroom. I have screenshots of absolutely everything. I have dates. I have buyers that Susan tracked down who confirmed they purchased family heirlooms from you. Chloe opened and closed her mouth like a fish out of water. And I have this, I said, pulling Arthur's old cell phone out of my purse. The text messages where Arthur explicitly warned Ryan about you, where he told him not to let himself be manipulated, where he reminded him to take care of his mother, not the inheritance. Ryan looked up. Tears were brimming in his eyes. Mom, I also have security footage, I continued relentlessly, and recordings of your phone calls, Chloe, where you plot exactly how to make me look confused in front of the family, where you talk about a little push here, a moment of confusion there, where you tally up the millions you will blow once you lock me away in a home. And right there, standing in my living room, surrounded by my things and my history, I watched Chloe's entire world shatter into pieces. Exactly how she had tried to shatter mine. Chloe desperately tried to regain her footing. I could practically see the gears in her brain grinding, searching for an exit, an excuse, any possible way to flip the situation around. But she was trapped. That is illegal, she finally spat out, pointing a shaking finger at the hidden cameras. Recording someone without their consent it is completely legal when it is done inside your own private property, Mr. Henderson interrupted, his voice calm but authoritative. And Mrs. Vance has every legal right to protect her assets from potential theft. I am not a thief, Chloe hissed. No? I asked. Then hand over the $40,000 from the jewelry you sold. Right now, silence. I did not think so, I said. Ryan, go upstairs to your bedroom and bring down your wife's jewelry box. The large one. The black velvet one. My son looked at me with pleading eyes. Mom, please. Right now. I had never yelled at him like that. Not even when he was a kid and broke a window playing baseball, nor when he failed his college classes. Never. But today was entirely different. Today, my patience was completely gone. Ryan dragged himself up the stairs like a sleepwalker. Chloe tried to follow him, but Mr. Henderson stepped squarely in her path. Ma'am, it is best if you stay right here, he told her with polite but firm authority. Ryan came back down 2 minutes later holding the jewelry box. He set it down on the coffee table with trembling hands. I opened it. Everything was right there. My garnet necklace that she claimed was at the jeweler. My mother's pearl earrings I thought I had misplaced. The jade brooch from our 20th anniversary that supposedly got lost during the move. My grandmother's turquoise bracelet that I figured I had just stored incorrectly. One by one, I pulled each piece out. I laid them out on the coffee table like hard evidence in a courtroom trial. Every single one of these pieces has a history, I said, my voice cracking just slightly. My mother-in-law wore this necklace on my wedding day. She handed it to me herself and said, "Welcome to the family, daughter." I inherited these pearl earrings when my own mother died. I wore them every Sunday to church. Arthur bought me this jade brooch when we celebrated 20 years of marriage. He spent his entire holiday bonus on it that year. Ryan buried his face in his hands. He was crying silently. "And this bracelet," I continued, picking up the turquoise stones. "My grandmother used to wear it when she took care of us as kids. Your father and I loved watching it sparkle when she made us hot chocolate. When she died, she left it to me and said, 'Keep this safe for your son.'" I stared Ryan straight in the eyes. "For you, Ryan, so you would have a piece of your great-grandmother. And you just sat back and let your wife sell it for $2,000 to some total stranger on Instagram." "I did not know," he whispered. "I swear to you I did not know." "You did not know?" I echoed, the fury rushing back into my voice. "You did not know your wife was sneaking into my bedroom without permission? You did not know she was hawking my belongings on the internet? Did you genuinely not know? Or did you just choose to look the other way?" He had no answer. I turned my focus back to Chloe. "But you know what hurts the most? It is not the jewelry. Money can be replaced. Things can be bought again. What absolutely breaks me is that you tried to steal my dignity, my independence, my basic right to live peacefully in my own home." I pulled out my cell phone. I pulled up the audio recording I captured of her phone call. I hit play. Chloe's voice echoed through the living room. "I almost have that idiot Ryan convinced to put his mom in a home. The old lady is getting more confused by the day. $1.5 million. Just imagine what we can do with that." I saw Ryan snap his head up. I saw him look at Chloe with an expression I had never, ever seen in his eyes. Absolute disgust. "Is this true?" he asked his wife, his voice raw and gravelly. You called me an idiot? You seriously plan to lock my mother in a nursing home just so you could sell her house? It is not just her house. You have rights too. You are her son. It is her house," Ryan screamed, jumping to his feet. "She built it with my dad. It belongs to her." For one fleeting second, I saw a flash of the boy I had raised, the man Arthur always dreamed he would become. But it was only a second. "Ryan, baby," Chloe started, layering on her sweet, sickening tone. "Your mom is manipulating us. She is playing the victim. We only wanted to help her, to protect her. You shoved her on Christmas," he yelled back. "You threw her to the floor in front of our entire family. It was a total accident." "It was no accident," I shouted, cutting them both off. "It was part of your sick plan. A little push here, a moment of confusion there. Just so everyone would see me as fragile. To justify the nursing home, you said it yourself on that phone call." The technician stepped out from the hallway. "Mrs. Vance, the system is fully operational. Would you like me to walk you through how it works?" "Yes, please." Over the next few minutes, while the technician showed me the controls for the new alarm panel, Chloe and Ryan stood frozen in dead silence. I watched her try to inch closer to him, and I watched him physically recoil. I watched the marriage that had lasted 3 years disintegrate right before my eyes, and I felt no satisfaction. I only felt deep sadness, because that was my son watching his marriage fall apart, but it was a marriage rotting from the very roots. When the technician finished packing up and left, I pulled out the formal documents Attorney Vance had drafted. "These papers are a legal ultimatum," I explained calmly. "You have 48 hours to vacate this property completely. You may only take exactly what you brought with you when you moved in. Your clothes, your personal belongings, and nothing else. The renovations you made stay right here, because you did them to my property without my permission." "Are you kicking us out?" Ryan asked, sounding exactly like a frightened little boy. "Yes. Mom, please." "Chloe can take her clothes and her things," I continued, refusing to soften my stance. "But the jewelry she stole, every single piece, stays right here. and she will pay me back the $40,000 she made selling the rest of it, in monthly installments, if necessary. If she refuses, I am filing formal criminal charges for grand theft." Chloe let out a guttural sound, like a wounded animal. "And this," I said, pulling out the final document. "This is my brand new will, fully signed and notarized this morning. If anything happens to me, if I suffer a mysterious accident, if I suddenly become so confused that I need to be put away in a home, this house does not go to you. It goes directly to the Oak Park Foundation for Vulnerable Senior Women." I watched the blood drain completely from Chloe's face. Ryan only inherits the rental property in Milwaukee that his father bought years ago, roughly $250,000, more than enough for a fresh start, but you will not get 1 square foot of this house, not 1 penny of my investments. Absolutely nothing. "Mom, that is not fair," Ryan protested. "I am your only son." "Fair?" I repeated, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. Was it fair to shove me to the floor on Christmas? Was it fair to plot locking me away in a nursing home? Was it fair to steal my jewelry and pawn off my heritage? Was it fair that you chose this woman over your own mother? Ryan had no answer. He just stood there crying. "A mother's love is unconditional," I said, feeling the hot tears finally burn my eyes. "But respect has to be earned. And you two have entirely lost my respect. You have 48 hours. If you are not gone by 6 o'clock in the evening on December 30th, I am calling the police and pressing formal charges." Mr. Henderson rested his hand gently on my shoulder. "Eleanor, would you like me to stay?" "No, Mr. Henderson. I have done what I needed to do." That night I slept in my own house, completely alone in my bedroom, with the brand new lock on the door. And for the first time in 8 months, I slept peacefully because I had recovered something far more valuable than money. I had recovered my voice. Those next 48 hours were the longest of my entire life. Not because I doubted my decision for a single second, but because it meant watching my own son pack up his life and walk out that door, not knowing if or when he would ever return. The morning of December 29th dawned gray and overcast. Typical of Chicago around that time of year, that damp, biting cold that seeps right into your bones. I came downstairs at 7 o'clock and found Ryan in the kitchen, making coffee. He had deep, dark circles under his eyes, and his clothes were badly wrinkled. He had spent the night sleeping on the living room sofa. "Good morning," I said, because basic manners do not just disappear even when your heart is broken. "Mom?" he started, but I held up my hand to stop him. "The clock is still ticking. Tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the evening." "I know, Can we talk?" I poured myself a cup of coffee. The smell of cinnamon brought me instant comfort. Arthur always used to put a dash of cinnamon in his coffee. I had kept that tradition alive. "You have exactly 5 minutes," I told him, sitting down at the table where I had eaten breakfast for 40 straight years. Ryan sat across from me. He looked as if he had aged 10 years in just 2 days. "Mom, I made mistakes, horrible mistakes. I did not defend you when I should have. I let Chloe disrespect you. I entertained ideas that I never, ever should have considered." I sipped my coffee in total silence, waiting. "But I am still your son," he continued, his voice cracking. "I am still the little boy you raised, the one you took care of when he had pneumonia at 6 years old, the one you fiercely defended when everyone else said he would never amount to anything." "I know," I said, the words physically hurting as they left my mouth. "That is exactly why this hurts so much." "Then give me another chance. Please let me fix this." I drank my coffee slowly. I remembered all the times that exact same little boy had begged me for another chance. When he broke my mother's vase playing catch inside the house. When he brought home terrible grades. When he crashed his father's car. And I had always given him that second chance. But this was entirely different. This was not a shattered vase or a failing grade. This was sheer betrayal. "Where were you when your wife shoved me to the floor?" I asked, looking him dead in the eye. Ryan lowered his gaze. "Right there, at the table." "And what did you do?" Silence. "Nothing," I answered for him. "Not only did you do absolutely nothing, you had the nerve to tell me not to be dramatic. As if lying on the floor at 68 years old was just me being dramatic. I know, Mom. I know, and I deeply regret it. Do you regret it because you truly understand what you did, or do you regret it because I caught you?" That question left him completely speechless. Chloe walked into the kitchen right at that moment. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, she wore zero makeup, and she was dressed in sweatpants. It shocked me to see her like that. Vulnerable. Real. "Eleanor," she said, and I immediately noticed she did not call me Mom. "I need to talk to you. I have absolutely nothing to say to you. Please, just give me 5 minutes." I looked over at Ryan. He gave a slight nod. "I am going to go pack," he said, standing up and leaving the two of us alone. Chloe sat down in the exact chair Ryan had just vacated. She rested her hands on the table, fingers tightly intertwined. I noticed she was not wearing any rings, not even her wedding band. "I am not going to ask for your forgiveness," she began, and her blunt honesty surprised me. "Because I know you would never accept it, and I probably do not deserve it anyway." "You do not deserve it," I confirmed flatly, "but I want you to know something. I grew up with absolutely nothing. My family lived in a rundown trailer park on the south side, 5 kids crammed into 2 tiny rooms. My dad walked out on us when I was 8. My mom worked herself to the bone cleaning houses. Beautiful houses, just like this one." I stayed quiet. I was not about to let myself be manipulated by a sob story. "When I met Ryan and saw this house," she continued, "I saw everything I never had. Stability, wealth, a real future. And I became obsessed. I convinced myself that if I could just get my hands on this, I would never have to worry again. I would never have to be that poor little girl from the South Side, and you decided the best way to do that was to take it from me." I said without a shred of pity. "Did I?" "Yes, I did, because in my head, you had already lived your life. You had a husband who adored you, a son, a beautiful home. I just wanted my turn." I stared right at her. I saw a woman broken by her own ruthless ambition. Someone who had deeply confused owning things with having actual worth. "Chloe, I came from extreme poverty too," I told her. "My father was a bricklayer. My mother cleaned offices. I grew up watching them scrape by for every single penny. Arthur and I built all of this from the ground up. We lived inside a dusty construction zone for 3 whole years. We ate boxed macaroni and cheese and peanut butter sandwiches for months. We worked until our hands bled." She watched me intently. "The difference between you and me," I went on, "is that it never once crossed my mind to steal what belonged to someone else just so I could have it for myself. I worked, I struggled, I sacrificed, but I never stole. I never manipulated. I never betrayed anyone." "I know," Chloe whispered. "And that is exactly why I lost." She stood up from the table. Right before walking out, she turned back around. "For whatever it is worth, Ryan really does love you. He is just weak. I made him weak." "No," I corrected her sharply. "He chose to be weak. No one can do anything to you unless you allow them to." Chloe gave a stiff nod and walked up the stairs. The rest of the day dragged on in a suffocatingly heavy silence. I could hear them shuffling around upstairs, opening and slamming drawers, dragging heavy suitcases across the floor, arguing in hushed tones. Susan came over at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. She brought food, knowing full well I would not have cooked. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, freshly baked rolls. "How are you holding up?" she asked while heating up the meal. "I do not know," I admitted truthfully. "I feel like I got my house back, but I lost my son in the process." "You did not lose him. He lost his own way." We ate in silence in the kitchen. The very same place where I had cried so many nights. The very same place where Arthur used to hug me after a long, hard day. The very same place where I fed my baby boy 35 years ago. At 5 o'clock in the evening, on December 30th, Ryan and Chloe finally came downstairs carrying their bags. They had 3 large suitcases each, 2 heavy boxes of books, and a few shopping bags stuffed with personal items. Absolutely nothing else. I watched them load everything into Ryan's car, which was parked out front. No one said a word. The neighbors were definitely watching from behind their curtains. Mr. Henderson even stepped out onto his front porch, standing guard, making absolutely sure they did not take a single thing that did not belong to them. By 5:45, the car was fully loaded. Ryan stepped back inside one last time. He stood right in the middle of the living room, looking around as if he was trying to permanently memorize every single detail. "Mom," he said, his voice trembling, "is there really no way to fix this?" I felt something crack deep inside me, but I held my ground. "Yes, there is, but it is not going to happen overnight. You need to figure out exactly who you are without her. You need to remember exactly where you came from. And you need to truly understand that respect is not begged for, it is earned. And if I actually do it, if I get a divorce, if I change, if I prove to you that I can be a better man, then you can come find me. But not as a son looking for an inheritance. As a son who simply loves his mother." Ryan took a step toward me. He tried to pull me into a hug. My entire body went stiff. I did not push him away, but I did not hug him back either. "I love you, Mom," he whispered against my shoulder. "And I love you too," I replied. "But loving someone does not mean letting them walk all over you." He pulled away. Tears were streaming freely down his cheeks. He walked out the front door without ever looking back. Chloe never came back inside. She just got into the passenger seat, staring straight ahead. Rigid. Utterly defeated. I watched the car drive off down the historic Oak Park street. I watched it turn the corner and disappear completely. Susan wrapped her arms around me from behind. "You did the right thing," she assured me. "Then why does it hurt so incredibly much?" "Because you are a mother, and a mother's love hurts, even when you have to do what is necessary." That night, all alone in my quiet, empty house, I walked through every single room. I touched the walls that Arthur had painted. I sat on the sofa where he used to watch football. I smelled his old flannel shirts that I still kept hanging in the closet. "I did it, my love," I whispered to his framed photograph. "I kicked them out. I defended our home. But I feel so terribly empty inside." And right then, standing in the house that was finally and completely mine once again, I realized something vital. Reclaiming your space is only the very first step. Rebuilding your life is what has to come next. 3 months later, it is Thursday afternoon, and Mr. Henderson will be arriving in half an hour for our weekly coffee. I love Thursdays. They have officially become my absolute favorite day of the week. I put on a Frank Sinatra record, brew a fresh pot of coffee with a heavy dash of cinnamon, and pull the snickerdoodle cookies I baked yesterday out of the pantry. The house smells entirely different now. It smells like me, like fresh paint, like hydrangea blooms from the yard, like freshly baked goods. It no longer smells like tension or lies. I repainted the living room a month ago, mint green, the exact color I had always wanted, but Arthur used to joke was way too bold. "When you are a widow, you can paint it whatever color you want," he would tease. "I never thought I would actually have to do it, my love, but you were right. The mint green looks absolutely gorgeous." Pictures of Arthur are finally back in their rightful places. On the mantel, on the bookshelf, right by the window, our wedding photo is sitting front and center in the living room. They do not make me sad anymore. They keep me company. They come down of exacta where I came from and exactly what I fought so hard for. The lace curtains I hand-embroidered are hanging right back where they belong. The fancy linen tablecloth we used on Christmas is washed, pressed, and safely stored away for next year. My sewing room is officially my sewing room once again. I have already started making dresses for the neighborhood teenagers, just like I used to. Susan comes over every Wednesday. We drink iced tea out in the yard and chat about everything and nothing at all. She was my absolute rock when my world was collapsing. Now, she is my wonderful company when everything is finally at peace. The jewelry. That was arguably the hardest part. With a lot of help from Susan and Mr. Henderson, we managed to track down 14 of the buyers who had purchased the pieces Chloe pawned off. Some of them gladly returned the items the second they heard the real story. Others made me buy them back. I ended up having to pay nearly $20,000 to reclaim what was already mine. It stung, but I have them back. The garnet necklace is resting around my neck right this very second. I wear it every single Thursday. It is my own personal way of honoring the mother-in-law who welcomed me into her family with so much love. The turquoise bracelet is clasping my wrist. My grandmother would be so incredibly proud of how fiercely I defended it. Chloe never paid me back the remaining balance. She vanished into thin air 2 weeks after they moved out of my house. She dumped Ryan the second she found out about the new will. If there is no inheritance, there is no marriage, she told him, according to what he confessed to me later. She ran off with a wealthy tech investor from Austin, Texas, that she met on Instagram, someone with actual money this time. I decided not to file the criminal charges against her. Mr. Henderson told me I easily could, that I had a mountain of irrefutable evidence, but I chose to let it go. Not for her sake, for mine. Because carrying around that kind of hatred is just carrying dead weight. Ryan, my son, that is still the most complicated situation. He texts me every single week, long paragraphs begging for my forgiveness, telling me he is actively in therapy, that his divorce from Chloe is finalized, that he landed a new job, that he finally understands the gravity of what he did, that he desperately wants to come home. I reply to him, I cannot just ignore him. He is still my son. But my messages are brief, cordial, and distant. I am glad you are doing well, Ryan. I hope therapy is helping you. Keep moving forward. 2 weeks ago, he showed up on my front porch, totally unannounced, holding a bouquet of yellow roses, my absolute favorites. He looked thinner, with more gray in his hair, older. Mom, he asked softly, can I come in? I let him in. We sat in the mint green living room. We drank coffee. We talked. He poured his heart out. He told me how Chloe had manipulated him from the very start, how she paid off the credit cards he maxed out for that failed business, using it to threaten to leave him if he did not comply, how she constantly made him feel like he would never be enough without serious money, how she systematically convinced him that I was the only obstacle standing between them and true happiness. But none of that excuses what I did, he admitted, tears welling in his eyes. I made those decisions. I completely failed you. I sat there and let her humiliate you in your own home. I did not hug him. I still cannot. What exactly do you want, Ryan? I asked him. I want to be your son again, not the son waiting around for his inheritance, the son who takes care of you simply because you are my mom. Then prove it, with time, with actions, not just with empty words. He left with that answer. Now, he comes over every Sunday. He has coffee with me. We never talk about the house, or the money, or the past. We talk about how the garden is blooming, about the news, about the weather. It is a start, a very small, very fragile start. But it is something. This morning, while I was out watering the hydrangea bushes that Arthur planted 30 years ago, I caught myself singing. I honestly could not remember the last time I sang. My hip hardly aches anymore. The wrinkles are definitely still there, but I view them differently now. They are the battle scars of wars I actually won. I am 68 years old. I live alone in a massive 3-story house in Oak Park. I have over $500,000 in investments that absolutely nobody else can touch. I own a $1,500,000 home that is entirely mine. I have a sister who visits me every week and a wonderful neighbor who drinks coffee with me every Thursday. And I possess something infinitely more important. I got my dignity back, because I learned a very hard lesson over these last few months. I learned that love alone is simply not enough if it is not accompanied by respect, that true family is not defined by who shares your blood, but by who honors your worth, that forgiving someone does not mandate forgetting what they did, and that setting strict boundaries does not make you a bad person. I learned that even at 68 years old, you can always start over, that it is never, ever too late to stand up and defend yourself, that the voice you thought you had lost was really just asleep. The doorbell rings. It is Mr. Henderson, holding his worn leather briefcase and wearing that warm, grandfatherly smile. Eleanor, is the coffee ready? He calls out from the entryway. Ready, Mr. Henderson, with plenty of cinnamon, just how you like it. We sit down in the mint green living room. He fills me in on all the neighborhood gossip. I tell him about the prom dresses I am sewing. We laugh, we drink our coffee, we eat the snickerdoodle cookies, and it suddenly hits me. This right here is happiness. Not the picture-perfect, fairy tale ending kind of happiness. Real happiness. The kind you deliberately build day by day, decision by decision, boundary by boundary. I glance at the wedding photo of me and Arthur resting on the mantel. We look so young in that picture, so full of wild dreams, and we made every single one of those dreams come true, my love. We built this home. We raised our son. We lived 42 beautiful years of love. And now, I keep going. Alone, but never empty. Free, but never lost. Covered in scars, but overflowing with strength. Because true wealth does not lie in the things you own, but in the things you absolutely refuse to let anyone take away from you. And nobody is ever taking anything from me again. If this story touched your heart, leave me a comment letting me know where you are watching from. I would love to know that my words reached you. Hit the like button if you believe that dignity has no age limit, and subscribe to keep listening to life stories just like this one. Because we all deserve a reminder that it is never too late to reclaim our voice. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with your own family? Tell me all about it in the comments. Your story deserves to be heard too. The end.